Welcome back, everybody, to Backcountry Amateur Radio. This is Eric, KI7WJP. Today I want to talk to you about TERT, Timpanogos Emergency Response Team. This is a specialized group of volunteers that goes up onto Mount Timpanogos in Utah, which overlooks the Provo Valley area, or Utah Valley area, which has 2 universities and a few 100,000 people, maybe more. And a lot of people look up and they just get up in the morning, they're like, I'm going to go hike that. And it's a big mountain, tops out at 11,752 feet in elevation, whose trailheads start around 7,000 to 7,500 feet in elevation. Timpanogos Emergency Response Team posts volunteers at the trailheads and high on the mountain to help people understand what they're getting into and how to deal with some of those things, from basic hydration to recommended clothing, sunscreen, and even the high camp. That team will provide filtered water if necessary to people who don't have enough, which is common. The trails are long, arduous, and steep. This alpine environment is not an easy one. Next, I'm going to show you some of the training and footage and notes I took during our outdoor training.
You're lifting it. Yeah, without tilting the head. You're not holding the seal. There you go.
A lot of things to do.
Technique is something is in the right spot. That goes down the side, and you just let it slide in there. Yeah, just like that, and that's it. And it'll just sit there. But the thing that's important is to measure it. Corner to the earlobe. The corner of the mouth to the earlobe. Same with this. Corner of the mouth to the earlobe.
Interesting. These are all great tips. So this is our outdoor training. The indoor training, we talked a lot more about some of the theory and some of the textbook stuff that you run into in the alpine environments. And that's nothing new to people who spend a lot of time in the mountains, especially the high mountains. We talked about hypothermia. We talked about how to address it, how to recognize it. And those are things, if you are out in the high mountains, that you really need to know how to recognize and deal with. And so getting some hands-on training was really nice. Since we have a responsibility to the public and to the sheriff's office and to search and rescue, we have another step that we take during any kind of injury that we might find on the mountain, including a fall, hypothermia, hyperthermia, cardiac arrest, things that you run into. It's important for us to take notes. And this is where being a ham radio operator comes in. Taking notes, communicating those notes properly through the chain of command and to the proper resources or authorities in case you do need help. When we did the indoor training, we talked a lot about high elevation sickness. It is brought on by being in the high alpine. Acute mountain sickness, high altitude cerebral edema, and high altitude pulmonary edema, all of which can be life-threatening if not addressed immediately. No outdoor training would be complete without talking about hypothermia, dehydration, and hyperthermia. These are all issues that have a lot more to do with how prepared you are in the food department, hydration department, and clothing department. Some of the concerns that I have or I run into that I share on my channel in the SOTA videos is dealing with terrain as it changes in the alpine. And when you get to snow bridges, you deal with falling rocks, how to stay oriented to where you're supposed to be. And just those things become physical hazards if you are not very careful out there. You need to pay attention to where you're going, carry a map and compass, and watch above, especially in the springtime when rocks tend to fall the most frequently. These are things that you need to know about when you're traveling in the alpine. Because Timpanogos is such a high mountain and people don't start to experience symptoms until they get above 10,000 feet, they are very far from getting back to their vehicle, and this can be very difficult to remove them from the mountain or evacuate them. So helicopters do play a vital role in evacuating people off the mountain. So we talked a lot about how to set up landing zones and how to identify a proper landing zone for a helicopter, that there needs to be somebody who's going to flag the helicopter in, and it is basically, depending on the weather, it could be pretty intimidating having a helicopter touch down with the nose of the aircraft touching your hand that is out in front. That probably won't always happen, but we did talk about those scenarios, and that person on the ground needs to hold their ground and wait for that helicopter to land. You are their point of reference, and that's how the crew is going to stay safe. We had some presentations from the crew. Who you see here is the pilot. He is a former military helicopter pilot and exceptionally skilled, and it was great to hear from him. They talked about how to handle the rotor wash, which is as the helicopter lands or takes off, the amount of air pushes everything, dust, debris, right into your face if you're staying in the helicopter. So your best bet, especially if you are not vital to loading or unloading, is to stand clear and give the helicopter a wide berth. All right, the next few clips, I'm going to let the crew do a little bit of the explaining. So this is pretty great.
Stabilizers. You are the goalie. And that job, it sounds kind of corny, but your hands are out and no one and nothing gets by you. However, if something goes back, if a human comes back, push him to the ground, keep him forward. If a piece, you're gonna follow me right in my track through the rotor disc. I'm gonna pull in on the cases right here. That's going this from that side. And then you swing. It's gonna be a little tricky. Head first. Now Stefan's gonna start securing. I'm gonna come here and be like, you out the way we came. You out the way you came. Same thing, right on down. Out the way you came. We might keep them if they're a really heavy patient. We might keep one just to help us lift the wheels. Once you secure, rotor guard. We got this is great.
Just to be clear, Timpanogos Emergency Response Team is not a group or a team of search and rescue. Although some of the team members are on search and rescue, it is not search and rescue. It is a mountain first responder type of team, and using ham radios to communicate is what drew me to it. It is really unique. It's in my backyard, and being a ham radio operator who spends so much time in the backcountry, it was something I really wanted to be a part of. The idea of backcountry amateur radio, the channel, is exemplified through Timpanogos Emergency Response Team. Inadvertently, they use it to communicate between team members and groups on the mountain. They use the ham radio to communicate with the sheriff's office through a phone patch. It is an example of how ham radio can play a vital role in a wilderness first response if a system is in place in order to connect to the outside world. And up on the mountain, there's very little cell phone connectivity. And this is why amateur radio is used, because it is so effective. Thanks for tuning in today and watching this video. I think it's really important that we consider just how effective we can use ham radio in all sorts of different scenarios. with TERT, Timpanogos Emergency Response Team, I hope to bring you more footage and more information as the season goes on and have time to be on the mountain. And I think that will be valuable in promoting the use of amateur radio in the backcountry. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you down the trail. Backcountry Amateur Radio.